Dancing with Destroyer Group 6 by Reading in Solitude. The Admiral sat in his favorite chair by the fire, resting his feet upon the ottoman some of the destroyers would sit on in their leisure time with him. Fortunately, all the destroyers were well off to bed by now, and he would have himself some time for himself, until he at last retired in the late evening with his secretary. He relaxed deeper into his seat, even laying his book down as he took in the relaxing evening he had to himself. A night of peace. Just him, his favorite records, and a good book to unwind with. The Admiral closed his eyes as he considered perhaps making something nice for him and his secretary. The door creaked ever so slightly, just loud enough for him to hear, but the Admiral assumed nothing of it, as he'd had a window cracked so as to keep moisture from building in the room as the fire burned. He assumed it must have just been the wind. It wasn't until his record stopped playing that he took notice. "Hey, watch out! Don't drop the Admiral's record," said one. "It's fine, Akatsuki. I can do this," said another. "Do you have the record, Hibiki?" asked the third. "Here," said the final. "I hope he likes it," said the third voice. Another song started playing as the Admiral sat up in his chair, but before he managed to get up, he was greeted by the whole of Destroyer Group 6. "What are you doing? You four should be in your beds," he stated firmly. "Please don't be mad, Admiral. We've come to ask something of you," stated the middle of the four, Inazuma. She was a shy girl who often scared quite easily. "What is it that you want? Is it something that your peers can handle?" asked the Admiral. "Admiral, that would be improper of a lady to ask such things of her peers," stated Akatsuki. Akatsuki oftentimes would worry over being a lady, or at least appearing to be a lady. "Improper?" he asked. "What my sister means to ask is," attempted Akazuchi, though she too could not manage to do so. "We want to dance, Commander," said Hibiki. She was usually the quietest of the group, but for once she spoke up for them. "To dance?" asked the Admiral. "Whatever is so improper of learning to dance with your peers?" "Did you learn to dance from your peers in the Naval Academy?" asked Akatsuki. "Well, no, I actually learned before," began the Admiral. "See, because it's wrong to dance with your peers," argued Akazuchi. "My sisters are embarrassed to learn in front of the other destroyers, but I just want to dance," stated Hibiki. "You know how to dance?" asked the Admiral. Hibiki grabbed him by the hands and pulled him towards the clearing in the room. She nodded her head, but said nothing more. "Hey, who said you got to dance with him first?" cried Akatsuki. Hibiki shrugged as she held the hands of the Admiral. "Shall we dance, then?" asked the Admiral, unsure of what to do next. He had wanted to relax that evening, but since the festivities had already begun, he figured he may as well play along. "Come on, Hibiki, you're holding us up," said Akazuchi. "Yeah, show us what you've got, since you're the one who knows how to dance," egged on Akatsuki. Moaned Hibiki. "Are you all right?" asked the Admiral as he stared at her. She looked a little more pale than usual, and he noticed that her hands were rather shaky. Perhaps she had an upset stomach, he thought. "I think she's nervous," stated Inazuma. "What, of dancing with the Admiral?" spat Akatsuki. "A lady would never be so nervous about such a thing." "Then why didn't you go up there first?" asked Akazuchi. Akatsuki stopped talking, allowing for the Admiral to speak up. "Is this your first time dancing with somebody, Hibiki?" Hibiki shook her head. "Perhaps, then, your first time dancing with a boy?" She nodded. "Well, I assure you there's nothing scary about that. That is, at least I don't think there is. I've never danced with a boy before," he joked. He tried to cheer up Hibiki, but he could tell that it wasn't quite working. "Look, we'll go slow, okay?" he assured her. "Okay," she mumbled. "I noticed you picked a waltz. Waltz of the Flowers, is it? Mm-hmm. Tchaikovsky. She only picked him 'cause he's a Russian. I said that we should have chose Bach instead, pouted Akatsuki. Well, do you know how to waltz? Asked the Admiral. Hibiki nodded and placed her first hand on his waist and the other gently into his. He did the same with her, and from there they began their dance, moving about the clearing slowly at first, though picking up the pace as the two got into it. That's it to the dance? Asked Inazuma. What do you mean that's it? Asked Akazuchi. Yeah, what do you mean by that's it? It's such a regal dance. Like a real lady, cheered Akatsuki. The Admiral and Hibiki enjoyed one another's company as the two danced to the music. When at last they finished, Hibiki lingered in the Admiral's arms before starting to let go. However, even as she did so, she hesitated. Did you have fun? Asked the Admiral. I had a show, she whispered. Good, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it, he replied, giving the destroyer a hug. Now, I suppose each of you would like your own turn, too, right? He asked, to which the others nodded eagerly. What's all this noise I hear? Asked somebody from the doorway. Ah, Congo, exclaimed the Admiral. I was just teaching these three how to dance. Would you like to help me out? Only if you pay me with a dance of your own, she smiled. Certainly, my love, he said to her, and with that they danced well into the night, merrily until they all fell asleep.